Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's webinar. Just give me 1 second. Sorry, guys, I'm sitting in new software, so just give me 1 second. So today we're looking at the ASQA audit process and how to get ready for it. Now, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Alex Schroder, and desperately trying to get to the first slide and it's just not working. Just bear with me for a sec. Yeah, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Alex Schroder. I am the CEO of VetPrep Australia, which is one of Australia's largest rectification consultancies in the vet sector. And I'm also still getting there. And I'm also a sanction management and rectification specialist, guys. I do a lot of work in the tribunal. As a qualified lawyer, of course, I do know the vet legislation inside out, or I hope I do. So, yeah, like I said, that's a bit about me. If you want to know more about me, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about me. If you want to know more about me, feel free to go and stalk my Instagram and you'll find out everything that you want to know about me professionally from there. We've got a really good number of people here today. Guys, thank you everybody for coming. For those of you that come to most of my webinars, you'll know the process that we're going through. And for those that are new, what we're going to do is I'm going to take you guys through a little bit of housekeeping stuff, and then we are going to start the actual topic. So a bit of housekeeping, guys. I don't know if we're going to have time to do a lot of questions today. It is quite a lot that I want to cover with you. And even if we do have Q&A time, you may find that maybe there isn't time to get around for me to answer your specific question. Or, hey, you know what? Maybe after the webinar, this afternoon or next week sometime, maybe you're sitting there and thinking, oh, you know what? I wish I'd asked Alex XYZ. If you have any questions, like I said, that weren't addressed in the webinar, in the webinar today, or anything that gets to you that you think of after the webinar, email your questions to info@aicp.edu.au. AICP is the RTO that sponsors these webinars, and the team will forward your questions on to me. Guys, if you email any questions to AICP, please make sure that you include your mobile number, because sometimes, depending on the question, it may just be easier for me to pick up the phone and just call you and answer your question over the phone. If you don't put in a mobile number there, it makes it difficult for me, and I'm most likely going to pass on to other stuff. Guys, have a look at the future webinar topics. You'll see that I think the one in a fortnight's time, that will be on AICP's website within the next few business days. Go to aicp.edu.au/webinars to go and see what webinars happening next. As always, have a quick look at ASQA audits and their currently regulatory activities. Guys, ASQA is, they're still having an absolute field day with international colleges. They're also having a very, very tight look, or their integrity unit is having a very, very tight look on RTOs. They do a lot of completions in short periods of time, because that usually raises a red flag, and that's when they'll go into RTOs and go and have a look at the training and assessment practices, and then the next thing we know, that the RTO is being shut down and qualifications are being cancelled and all things like that. So as I said, they are still focusing on international colleges. They definitely are looking at what they class as high risk providers. And remember, high risk in this instance is not just whether or not you are delivering high risk training products, but it also depends on the risk rating of your RTO. As always, you need to be absolutely sure that you are audit ready at any one stage. At the moment, there are a number of re-registrations happening without an actual audit. And that is usually because ASQA, the auditing team, is busy elsewhere and they're doing other things. Just because you have been re-registered without an audit Do not for one moment assume that you won't be seeing ASQA for the next few years. All it means, as I said, is they are busy with other stuff, and they will be sending you a love letter in the near future when they get around to you. So once again, if you've just gone through re-reg without an audit, when I say just, I mean the last 6 to 12 months, do not for one moment think that you are audit safe. Always be ready for your ASQA love letter to come. And of course, the best way to do this is make sure that your compliance consultant comes in and does regular internal audits for you. And guys, I always focus on your compliance consultant doing your internal audits, because that is somebody who has got an arm's length away from the work that's being done, who's got no, who doesn't have the same involvement and buy-in to your RTOs your compliance practitioners do. And let them come in and just give you an absolutely unbiased and untainted opinion of where your RTO is at compliance-wise. Your certificates of attendance for this webinar will be issued within 3 business days. But guys, remember that only if you are registered will you actually get a certificate of attendance. So we often have people that might go and share a screen with a colleague at work, and then only the colleague that is registered gets a certificate of attendance. And then the person that went and shared and sat next to them and sort of shared their screen without registering comes back and says, I didn't get a certificate. Well, no, you wouldn't have, because you weren't registered. And then they'll say, oh, but I watched it on my colleague's screen, please send me a certificate. ARCP can't, because we have got, or they've got absolutely no reliable evidence that you were actually in the webinar because you didn't register. So guys, please, like I said, make sure that you always register. Don't share screen with a colleague, and your certificate of attendance will be issued within 3 business days. Okay, now we've got the housekeeping out of the way, and let's have a look at the actual nitty-gritty of today. And those of you guys that are regulars to my webinars, you guys know that I love Webinar Friday. So yay! So my sudden wide grin on my face is because it's Webinar Friday. Love it. So today we are looking at ASQA's current audit processes from the start to the finish. Now, there are a number of RTOs. In fact, there are many RTOs that haven't seen ASQA for a few years. And yes, lucky you. However, ASQA's auditing processes and their auditing practices have changed significantly over the last period of time. And I know that because while I was serving on the ASQA stakeholder liaison group, one of the things that we looked at is we actually worked with ASQA and looked at their audit practices, their audit processes, and had a really good critical look at that to see, because obviously we all know that the ASQA audit practices at one stage were just, luckily they're something of the past. Anyway, like I said, I was one of the teams that actually, or one of the people that helped ASQA to look at their audit practices and audit processes, and luckily from there, significant changes were made. So what does the ASQA audit process actually look like? We're going to go through today when you get your audit notification through to your audit entry meeting, the evidence requirements, your management meeting, your exit meeting, your audit report, and what happens after an audit report if you had some non-compliances. So first up, your audit notification. Guys, as soon as you receive an audit notification, please contact your compliance consultant immediately. You do not want, in today's, with how things are going at the moment, vis-a-vis the regulators' activities and their auditing activities, please believe me when I tell you categorically that you do not want to do this audit without your compliance consultant. And it doesn't matter, even if you've got a really strong in-house compliance team, contact your compliance consultant immediately. Let them know that we've got an audit notification, because you want your compliance consultant to be going through this journey with you. In your audit notification, they will provide you with some proposed dates. Now, guys, the proposed dates can be negotiated within reason. So if the ASQA auditor comes back and says, hey, or to give you guys an example, we had a client that ASQA wanted to go into audit with, I think, oh my gosh, the 16th or the 17th of December, it might have been, they might have wanted to start the 15th, I forget. However, I was actually going to be on holiday at that stage, and I think they wanted to start the day that my annual holiday started. And we simply said to the ASQA auditor, look, that date won't work for us because I, the compliance consultant, is on holidays, and this is when I'm back from annual leave, and this is where I would be available to start the audit process with our client. And the ASQA auditor said yes, because it was within reason. And I think the proposed start date, or the start date then changed to, oh gosh, about the 3rd week of January. And although it was a long extension that we asked for, it was reasonable at the time because it was over a Christmas break. And for goodness sake, annual leave. So as I said, in your audit notification, there will be some proposed dates. Those can always be negotiated, but it's got to be within reason. When you respond to the ASQA auditor's love letter, please make sure that you CC your compliance consultant in on the email. Secondly, in the actual body of the email, advise the ASQA auditor who your consultant is, and also ask that they always include your consultant in all correspondence. Because remember this, given that you want your consultant to go along this or to go through this journey with you, your consultant needs to know what's happening. So they can also have a look to see, are they available on these and these dates, and do the dates that the auditor wants to work to, does it suit them? Do they have any conflicting obligations? I've got to be in I think it's the Supreme Court in Brisbane in April. I'm delivering expert testimony on a RTO guy that committed fraud. So if an ASQA auditor came through and they said, hey, we want to start audit on this date, my client, I'll simply go back and say, no, we can't, because I am involved in a court case during those dates. Make sense? Okay. There we go. No, I've skipped too far. The next thing that will, sorry, like I said, I'm sitting on new software. Please bear with me for 1 second. I'm just going to stop this for a sec. All right. Guys, sorry, I won't be a sec. Okay, my screens have gone a little bit weird. So guys, let's not do the screens. Let's not do death by PowerPoint. Just bear with me. Okay, so with the so you've had your ASQA or your audit notification. You've advised your consultant. You've checked with them that they are available. You've advised ASQA that absolutely you need to work on these dates, and ASQA needs to include your consultant in all future correspondence about the audit, and also also advise your auditor at that stage that your consultant is obviously going to be present during the audit the whole audit. Guys, I'm getting requests from so many people to say, can I please put up the correct slides? So I'm going to stop this for a second. I'm going to find the slides that I need to be working to, and I'll be back as soon as I can. Okay. I think I'm back. All right, let me just find out where we are. Give me a second. It's not the right one, guys. Just give me a second. Jesus, this is embarrassing. Guys, look, I'm going to give it one more go, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to carry on without the slides. I will get you guys copies of the slides, but I also don't want to spend an awful lot of time trying to get my slideshow sorted out, where what we really want to be doing is to be actually going through this. So one more go, and if that doesn't work, then okay, I've got the slides that we need. All right, give me a sec. Yay! Right. Where were we? Guys, I do apologize. This is really embarrassing. All right, let's forget about the slides, and let's just simply carry on, please. I don't want to spend time on this. Okay, can I just have Sage, can you just let me know if the webinar is still going on, and if there's been any other issues, any other tech issues, if you can just let me know in the chat, please.
Sorry, Alex, the chat is disabled, but the webinar is live. Everybody can see you, and
Excellent.
we are A-OK to continue.
Thank you. Okay, guys, apologies for that. So we've covered all the audit notifications. So now we come to the audit entry meeting. First of all, it is really important that everybody that is going to be part of the audit from the RTO side is actually at the entry meeting, because at the entry meeting, the kind of things that will be discussed is going to include, give me a second. So at the entry meeting is basically there. It's an opportunity for the auditor to be able to tell you as the RTO exactly what to expect during the audit. So once again, ensure that all of your key team members are in the entry meeting, and ensure that your compliance consultant is there as well, because it could very well be that there might be some things that the ASQA auditor talks about in the entry meeting and that your compliance consultant needs clarification on or wants to question or something like that. Your ASQA auditor is going to discuss with you during the entry meeting the whole audit process. They're going to cover the expected timeframes for each part of the audit journey, including the meetings, how long it will take them to do the report, how long it will take to get the report to you, etc. They're also going to discuss with you your submission protocols. So usually what happens, as we know, is usually RTOs upload everything to ASQA.net. They will talk you through how they want your documents, your evidence to be uploaded, And if there are any issues with accessing ASQA.net, they'll also talk you through what the backup plan for that will be. They'll also talk with you the next steps after you get your audit findings report. So, i.e., if there are any non-compliances at the entry meeting, they give you an overview of how that section there works. Guys, at no one stage do you want to give them access to your LMS or your DMS? So the ASQA auditor may say, hey, instead of getting all of the documents to us, if you just give us access to your LMS or to your document management system, we'll go in there and we can just look at this stuff online. I always say to my clients, never, ever, ever give them access to any of your systems. Because at the end of the day, remember that the systems that you use, that is almost, that operationally, that is your RTO's castle. And we don't want to give them keys to the castle, because it's also a case of if you give them access to your LMS, your DMS, if they see something and if they've then got access because of that to something else, it can become a Pandora's box. So under no circumstance would I ever recommend that anybody give them access to their LMS or their DMS, even if you think, hey, you know what, I've given them access just to a certain area. I personally would never, ever do that. Download the documents, send them through the documents. Your ASQA auditor will also at the entry meeting discuss your audit scope. So they'll tell you which trading products they're going to be looking at. They'll also tell you which documentary evidence they want. And they'll then also start looking at when they want the various parts of the audit scope submitted. So these days, it isn't a case of, and for those of you that haven't been through an ASQA audit for a while, you know how in the old days, we had no idea what the auditor will be looking at. And we literally prepared everything. They'd come in, they'd spend, look at this much of what we prepared. And we sort of go, oh, these days, your ASQA auditor actually tells you exactly what they're going to be looking at. They're going to be telling you what units of competency they're going to be looking at. They'll also tell you specifically what documents they want, what documentary evidence. And once again, it's a case of they will actually discuss with you by which dates they want certain audit evidence uploaded to your ASQA.net. Now, the evidence is usually provided over 2 stages. In your first round of evidence, I call it your first round of evidence submission, you will usually be asked to upload your org chart. You may be asked to upload the job descriptions and employment contracts of your team members, including your non-training staff. You may be asked to provide proof of ongoing professional development for your non-training staff, because, guys, remember, under the 2025 RTO standards, there's the new requirement of RTOs ensuring that their workforce, A, is sufficient for the number of learners that they have, and B, that their workforce are actually sufficiently trained, knowledgeable, etc. So since the 25 standards have been coming or have been in place, we have actually seen some auditors ask for evidence of the ongoing professional development and, I guess, learning that the non-training staff members are undertaking or have undertaken. They're going to, in your first round, you're going to provide your policies and procedures. Now, this, guys, is the time to make sure before you upload that all of your PMPs have been contextualized and are grammatically correct and are error-free and actually look professional. Because do you know that even these days, there are still RTOs that come all the time, they go and upload their policies and procedures, and the PMPs have not been contextualized from what they bought it from the provider. You've still got, we still see PMPs come through it all the time where it's got in brackets, insert name of RTO. Now, when an auditor sees that, and trust me, they are trained to look for things like that. When they see that, the very, very first thought that comes to mind is, wow, if these guys haven't even contextualized their policies and procedures, it means they probably haven't implemented the requirements of the 2025 RTO standards yet, or they haven't implemented it fully. But also, if they are actually submitting audit evidence that they haven't made sure is actually correct, what other non-compliances am I going to find in this RTO? So, guys, it is absolutely critical that you make sure that your policy and procedures are 100% contextualized to your RTO, that you have taken out any of the generic reference points. So depending who you bought your policy and procedures from, remember some of the consultants that sell policy and procedures, they would have included procedures for both international students and domestic students in the same document. Make sure that you've actually contextualized all of that. So if you are purely domestic, your PNPs shouldn't have any reflection or any mention whatsoever about anything to do with international students. At this stage, you may also need to upload some registers. So it is a case of when you are asked to upload your policies and procedures, your RTO's compliance practitioner should also know enough of what they're doing to go, okay, so we have uploaded our policy and procedure regarding validation. Let me also provide them with our validations register, because the validation register goes hand in hand with the validation policy. Ditto if you've uploaded a policy on how you maintain your compliance obligations over the year. If you've provided that policy and procedure, then it makes sense to then also provide your audit schedule and your audit register. So make sure that when you, or the evidence requirements would be that when you upload your policy and procedures, you're also going to be required to upload the registers that go with the PNPs. And guys, once again, make sure that you don't give them access to your LMS or your DMS. We then get to the second round of evidence requirements, and that is usually your train and assessor files, and obviously, or your train and assessor credentials, my apologies. And obviously, with the credentials, we're looking at their TAE qualifications, their VET PD, their VET qualifications, their industry currency, etc. Now, I'm not going to go too much into evidence requirements for trainers and assessors. I'm not going to go too much into what kind of evidence you need to provide for your trainers and assessors. I am running a webinar where we are going to do a deep dive in exactly what evidence requirements to focus on. But like I said, your trainer and assessor files are going to be asked for usually in your second round of evidence. Your second round of evidence also usually includes your learner resources, your learning resources, your assessment tools. And remember, with assessment tools, we're looking at your learner assessment tool, we look into your assessor guide, your mapping documents, your RPL tools. That is all part of your assessment kits, and you'll be asked for your assessment resources alongside your learning resources, usually in round 2. You may also be asked for completed learner files. So they may want to go and see marked assessments for specific learners, and they will actually tell you the names of the learners that they are going to look at, or which files they're going to be looking at. And at this stage, they may very well do the interviews with the staff. Now, guys, this is usually how things go. It's not to say that every single audit is going to go that way. Sometimes stuff that I've got down as they'll be asking for in a second round, maybe asked for in a first round, and vice versa. But these are the things that you're going to have ready for audit. They do, and yes, they do interviews with staff. We find more and more that they do interviews with staff, so that I guess it's a really good way for the auditor to also find out from the team members' point of view on how the audit or how the RTO actually operates. Because let's face it, when they're speaking to the CEO or the training manager, we always tell them how good things are. And yeah, they do speak to staff members as well. Now, the auditor would have now gone through and done your audit on the evidence that you provided. The next thing is after they've done they've audited the evidence that you provided, they're then going to have a management meeting. Now, in the management meeting, you need to ensure that the people that are relevant to that management meeting are actually present. And it doesn't always only need to be the CEO as well as your compliance practitioner or your compliance consultant. There may be other people that may need to be in the management meeting. In the management meeting, be absolutely prepared to be quizzed, and be prepared to be quizzed on your knowledge of the 2025 RTO standards. So whether it is your compliance manager, your compliance consultant, usually not, but your internal staff, be prepared, especially the CEO, the PO, your leadership team that are in the management meeting or that were part of the entry meeting, be prepared to be thoroughly quizzed whether or not you know how the RTO standards need to be implemented, what they mean, etc. Because what the auditor is doing is they are then looking to see whether you as the leadership team actually know what your new compliance obligations are. And if you don't know them, it's going to potentially cause problems, because remember, in the NBR Act and in the updated RTOs or in the new RTO standards, there is a small requirement, actually a small little line, which is a massive requirement, that an RTO needs to be able to demonstrate their commitment to providing quality training and assessment services. And the argument goes, well, if the RTO, if the key staff members, the key team players, the key stakeholders in the RTO don't even know what the RTO's legislative and regulatory obligations are, how can they be committed to running a compliant and a quality training and assessment, or how can they be committed to be a compliant and a quality training provider? We've actually seen audit reports come through where RTOs have been audited since the 2025 standards and where they have failed audit. And we have actually seen audit reports come back and say, well, the RTO, when we spoke with the RTO CEO or with this person, they didn't have a clue on the 2025 standards, so they were unable to demonstrate their commitment to being a quality provider. And guys, once ASQA has made that finding, it's something that's actually really difficult it's not impossible, but it is difficult to refute. So as I said, make sure that you know those 2025 standards. And at the end of the day, there are so many opportunities to go and really immerse yourself into a learning journey of the 2025 standards. ARCP runs non-accredited courses about the 2025 standards. There are consultants out there that have been doing webinars on the 2025 standards. There are consultants out there that will go and sell you non-accredited attendance to a video. There's consultants out there that will go and sell you non-accredited learning journeys on the 2025 standards. So it's there. You need to just go and actually use it. Also be prepared, be quizzed about ongoing professional development for all of your staff, not only trainers and assessors, because once again, remember, in the 2025 standards, there's a requirement that the RTO has a workforce that is robust in their knowledge and also is robust in their numbers. So it's no longer a case of only making sure that you've got enough staff for the number of students that you have. Your staff also need to know what the heck they're doing in their jobs. And even your, whether it is an admin team member or enrollments or student support, those team members need to know how the RTO standards affect their job roles. And they also need to be undergoing ongoing professional development in their job roles. So be prepared, be quizzed on that. Be prepared, be quizzed on your operational practices. And what the ASQA audit is trying to do there is they've now had a time to read your policies and procedures. They're now going to ask you questions to see whether your operational practices actually align with your PMPs. And guys, it's not going to be a case of you're not going to be sitting there and it won't be as if you are undergoing a verbal assessment. All of these questions come out in the management meeting, and often it is not necessarily a question that you can go, okay, I know exactly what he's asking. Sometimes it's just a comment that the auditor makes. And we've been in ASQA meetings where the auditor in ASQA audits, where during the management meeting, the ASQA auditor has made a comment or has asked something where I would jump in and I'd say, can you just stop for a sec? Can you just clarify exactly what it is that you're looking for with that comment or with that question? But like I said, they are going to be quizzing you to make sure that your policies and procedures match your operational practices. And they're also going to want to quiz you to understand and to see how your RTO, how its implementation of the new RTO standards has actually been done. With your workforce, they're going to be asking you, they need to check whether you've got sufficient team members, whether your key people, your key stakeholders, what their experience is. If you are a small RTO, what your workforce expansion plans are, if any. Something that we've seen come up, and this is an interesting one, is with your contract trainers and assessors. Them looking at the number of hours that your contract trainers and assessors spend with your RTO, as well as the other RTOs where they work, and seeing if RTOs are using contract trainers and assessors that are so run off their feet delivering training. And there's nothing, and you see, this is a bit of a problem for me because it's nothing in the RTO standards nor the NVR Act that says that as RTOs, we are responsible to make sure that our contract trainers don't overcommit themselves, but they still do. So be prepared if that comes up. And of course, in the management meeting, there's anything else that they want to ask that they will ask at that stage. After our management meeting, they'll go away and they'll then arrange an exit meeting. Now, first of all, guys, sometimes some auditors may combine an exit meeting with a management meeting. And what we have found is usually if they do a management meeting and an exit meeting at the same time, it's usually, not always, but it's usually an indication that there were no major concerns with the evidence that was audited. Or it might have been, there might have been one or two small concerns, but usually if they do a management and an exit meeting together, it's usually an indication that we are good. If they don't do a combined management and exit meeting, don't stress. Like I said, it's not a rule of thumb. It is not to say that if they have a separate management and exit meetings, that we have got problems with our audit outcomes. At your exit meeting, the ASQA auditor provides a summary of their audit findings, and that is a great time for both parties to ask questions or seek clarifications on anything. We recently had did an ASQA audit with a client where at the exit meeting, the ASQA auditor brought up that one of the trainers and assessors didn't have sufficient industry currency. And because we had prepared all the files or helped the RTO prepare all the files, I jumped in and I said, hang on a second, we provided these and these and these documentary evidences for that trainer and assessor's industry currency. And the auditor went, I don't have it. And I then just said on the spot, I said, okay, can you just hold on? As soon as this exit meeting is finished, we will get it to you straight away because we know it's there. We did provide it. And instead of you documenting a finding that our trainer and assessor wasn't properly credentialed, let me shoot that through to you. And the ASQA auditor was like, fine. So as I said, it's a great time for both sides to ask questions, to seek clarifications. And during the exit meeting, the auditor will also discuss the next outcomes or the next steps if your audit outcome looks questionable. And they'll also tell you when we are likely to expect the audit report. And guys, I stress the word likely because although ASQA is meant to get, I think, audit reports they've got 21 days for, although they're meant to get it out in 21 days, they often don't. This is not the time to pick a fight with the ASQA auditor. So if the ASQA auditor provides you with a summary of findings that you don't agree with, do not pick a fight with them. I mean, I've seen RTOs that start getting all huffy and puffy and want to start picking a fight with the auditor because they believe the auditor hasn't done the audit process correctly. Guys, it's not the time to do it. Please don't go and pick a fight with your ASQA auditor. We don't want that. So now we're at the stage where your audit report comes out. If your audit report is not positive, please contact your compliance consultant immediately or contact a rectification specialist immediately. Because if you have got non-compliances, time becomes of essence. In non-compliances, you usually have 21 days to correct them. And guys, it's 21 calendar days, not 21 business days. And depending on what the non-compliances are, we may very well need every single hour of those 21 days. So please, if your audit report comes out and you do have non-compliances, don't sit there and don't sit on it. Go through to your compliance consultant straight away. And if your compliance consultant doesn't specialize in rectification, get hold of a rectification specialist immediately. And here's the thing. You do want a consultant to come in because trying to rectify those non-compliances internally without the help of a consultant may be a very bad idea. And the reason why I say that is this. If your internal team were not able to ensure that the documents that you presented for audit were exactly what you needed, met every single compliance requirement, what makes you think that they know enough? Because remember, the 25 standards are new. What makes you think that they've got the skills and the expertise to be able to do the rectifications? And I'm not suggesting for one moment that if your RTO doesn't have a brilliant audit outcome, that your internal compliance practitioners don't know what they're doing. Remember, dealing with an ASQA audit is something completely different. And as consultants, we work with ASQA audits the whole time. I think on average, I personally probably sit in about between 3 and maybe 6 ASQA audits every single month. So we are exposed as compliance consultants, we are exposed to what ASQA, what their processes are, what they're looking for, the nuances in their questions, etc. Your internal compliance team are not. But I go back to the point that I'm making, that if you've had non-compliances, it doesn't make sense to try and fix those non-compliances without the help of your compliance consultant or a rectification specialist. The next steps, if there are non-compliances, is if you have minor non-compliances, you may receive a directive to go and fix those non-compliances. It's usually within 21 days, and it's usually a case of, hey, go and attend to these, and you don't have to provide, ASQA with, sorry guys, I'll deal with the questions and answers just after this. Just bear with me, please. Just to recap, if there are minor non-compliances, you may receive a directive that says, hey, go and fix this within 21 days. And although you don't have to provide us with evidence that you fixed it, you need to keep the evidence in your file. So often we go into RTOs where they've had a directive and they haven't gone and actually done the work within the 21 days because, hey, it wasn't a requirement for us to go and submit it to ASQA and other priorities came up. I can guarantee you that if your RTO had a directive to go and do any kind of minor updates or rectification work within 21 days, and you were advised you don't have to upload it to your ASQA.net. Guaranteed, with your next ASQA audit, they are going to ask you for evidence that those rectifications were done within the 21 days. And guys, they have heard every single excuse from RTOs. They've heard, yes, we did it, but we just don't have the evidence. They've heard, our dog ate the evidence. We had a computer smash. Our evidence went and moved to a different planet. They've heard it all. So please remember, if you've had a directive to fix a minor non-compliance and you were not required to provide evidence to ASQA that you've actually fixed it, you must maintain that evidence in your compliance system because it will come up. And even if your next audit is 3 years down the track, they're going to ask you for it. Depending on, so if you have more than minor non-compliances, depending on the nature of the non-compliance, you will usually have an opportunity to rectify the non-compliances within 21 business days. Sorry, not 21 business days, 21 calendar days. And remember how I said earlier on that as soon as you get your ASQA audit report, to get a hold of your consultant or a rectification specialist right away, because, as I said then, you usually have 21 days to fix your non-compliances, and depending on what they are, those 21 days go by very, very quickly, guys. You've got no idea. Also, here's the thing, this thing in the tail. Depending on the severity of your non-compliances, you may be given less than 21 days to go and fix it. So 21 days is not set in stone. It is usual, but ASQA do have the discretion to make it less than 21 days if they believe that the non-compliances need to be fixed immediately to minimize the effect that it could have or it is having on your current learners. You may not be given 21 days. You may not be given an opportunity for rectification. You may need to go through for an internal review, or worst case scenario, you might have to go to the tribunal. So guys, once again, it's a case of when your report comes through, have a look and immediately act on it, because it's also a case of if you do need to apply for an internal review or the tribunal, it's something that the majority of RTOs don't actually have the expertise for in-house. Guys, and that's basically it. So this has been the second part of my ASQA RTO audit series. There is going to be, I think, 1 or 2 more webinars on this. So please make sure that you register for the next webinar. It's arcp.edu.au/webinars, and go and register easily. Now, question for you. I am going to the Cert for an RTO Compliance and the Diploma of RTO Compliance Management that ASQA delivers. These 2 courses are up for reaccreditation in 2027. And I'm currently having a look and maybe making a few tweaks and changes to the courses. To do that, obviously, I'm going to be doing industry consultation. If you would like an opportunity to share your thoughts on these courses with me, which I will then take into consideration to see if and where we want to tweak the courses, please drop me an email. It's alex@webprep.net.au, or you can also just email the ASQA team and they'll pass it on to me. Guys, future webinar topics, as I said, if you go to arcp.edu.au/webinars, you can see what is coming up in the future, in the near future. Now, I see you've got 10 minutes left. I do apologize. I wanted to leave more time for Q&A, but I will go to Q&A right now. Rebate, you've asked, how do you deny them access to your LMS when you've been requested? There's nothing in the NVR Act or the RTO standards that say that we have to provide the regulator with access to our internal systems. It does say there is a provision that we do have to cooperate with the regulator, but there's no regulatory or legislative requirement to actually give them access to everything they ask for. And the easiest way to overcome that is just to say to the auditor, look, that's fine. We're simply going to download the documentation for you and upload it to ASQA.net, and just stand firm. And the auditor has no right to insist that you give them LMS access, but they usually ask it because, hey, you know what? If they ask and RTOs give them access, well, you know, yippee, they've got that what they wanted, but you have no obligation to. I hope that answers your question. Let's have a look. What other questions we've got? Zena, you have asked, do we often see RTOs being sanctioned? Zena, yeah, unfortunately we do. It's a case of, remember, from the NVR or the NVR Act and the RTO standards require RTOs to be 100% compliant 100% of the time. And there's so many RTOs, and or part of that is also ensuring that your RTO actually prioritizes compliance and your quality assurance. And yes, I know that your compliance team, and I know that quality assurance is a cost center. It doesn't actually bring in any revenue to the business. However, we still see so many RTOs that are just so incredibly laid back about their compliance. And we see so many RTOs that go, oh, you know what? No, we our compliance consultant, we pilot company with them 6-7 months ago, and no, we haven't actually thought about getting anybody else in yet because we know that we're okay. RTOs don't know that they're okay unless they go and do their internal audits. And it's usually RTOs that either work with a compliance consultant that isn't that great at their job, or that RTOs that haven't been doing their internal audits. They are usually the guys that at audit time fail audit miserably. And that's when the sanctions come in. Jim, you've asked, what do we need to do with our workforce development policy? Jim, I'm going to assume that you mean, what do we need to do to implement the workforce development requirements in the RTO? Remember that you need to ensure, the RTO needs to ensure that not only do you have enough team members for the number of students, learners that the RTO has, but your team members also need to know what it is that they need to know, what knowledge and experience they need to have to do their job properly. And if your staff don't, if they aren't suitably trained, if they don't have the suitable knowledge and experience, your RTO is going to find itself in some deep water. Lisa, hi, it's lovely to see you here again. Lisa, you've asked whether the ASQA auditors are still, sorry, let me reread this. Are the ASQA auditors still as unfriendly as they used to be? That's beautiful. Lisa, and also everybody else, the ASQA auditors, the whole ASQA audit process has become a lot more collaborative than what it was in the past. And I remember the days where it was a case of we had ASQA auditors walk into an RTO and they were literally passive aggressive, or they were rude towards some RTO members. And I remember in the way back days where there were ASQA audits where I just simply said to the auditor, I'm sorry, I'm calling this audit to a stop right now, because of the way that you are interacting with the RTO, and this audit is finished right now. I will go and arrange with your manager to send out a different auditor. So, and it wasn't that long ago that we had to do things like that. What we found these days is the ASQA auditors, they are nice. They are generally cooperative. They, at the end of the day, remember, we're just dealing with people who are just needing to do their job. However, despite the fact that your ASQA auditor may be as nice as can be, remember they are not our friend. They are there to do a job as a regulator, and they're not there. They could be incredibly nice and incredibly friendly and all those things. It doesn't mean that they're our friend and we want to just tell them anything and everything. It isn't relevant to exactly what they're looking for. Does that make sense? Excellent. But no, I'm finding the ASQA auditors for a number of years now. They're really nice. You know, and it all depends. If you go in there and you've got an attitude towards them, like any other person, it's gonna put them a little bit on their back foot. Whereas if you go in there and go, hey, you know what, you're doing your job, we're doing our job, we're just doing it together. I haven't had problems with an ASQA auditor for quite some time. I hope that helps. Sean, you said, how long does it take for the average RTO to get ready for an ASQA audit? Oh, Sean, that's basically how long is a piece of string. If your RTO has been doing its regular internal audits, so for most of our clients, I always suggest, look, let's do you quarterly internal audits so that if there's anything amiss, we can catch it right there and then. So most RTOs that we work with, we do quarterly audits, and then we also do an annual audit before they do their declaration on compliance. So when you say how long does it take for an RTO to get audit ready, if your RTO has been focused, or one of the focus has been to ensure ongoing compliance, and if your compliance consultant and your compliance practitioners, your internal compliance practitioners, if everything is working like a well-oiled machine, it could be a case of it might take a couple of days. If you have RTOs that haven't done internal audits for so long, don't know where documentation is, it could be a lot longer. On average, when we have clients go into audit, if we've been managing their compliance for them, then we know that they are audit ready. Having said that, the majority of our clients also come to us because they failed audit, because VetPrep is rectification specialists. So it's a case of some RTOs, if their compliance is spot on, or at least almost spot on, it could take you days. If we don't know where things sit, then it becomes a nightmare. So I'm so sorry. I've just realized I've been waffling on and I actually can't give you a definitive answer. The one thing that I can really suggest is that make sure that your RTO is always audit ready, because if you are, then it means that getting ready for audit, or once you get your ASQA love letter, if your RTO is always audit ready, then getting that love letter doesn't mean that everything comes to a halt while we run around trying to get the audit evidence together to submit. Guys, with that, thank you so much for joining me today. I do apologize. It's been a little bit sort of I've sort of been a little bit like a fish out of water, because everything didn't, my slides and everything else. I am going to ask the ARCP team, if they haven't already done it, to email the PowerPoint slides to everybody, because I know that people are saying, hey, they'd really prefer the PowerPoint slides. Unfortunately, stuff happens, and it happened. But thank you so much for joining me. Once again, any questions, the ARCP's email will be on the PowerPoint slides. Please come ahead and ask questions, and I will see you guys in the next webinar. Have a fantastic weekend. Bye.